The Word of God to which our attention is drawn this morning, or this evening rather, is found in Psalm 27. Psalm 27. Our text is taken from the first 3 verses of this psalm. I noticed that the first time that I preached on this first verse was right after the death of Larry's father and just before the death of Darlene's mother at the age of 48 and 40 respectively because of cancer. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of trouble, he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me up upon a rock. And now shall mine head be lifted up above mine enemies round about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me, and answer me. When thou saidst, seek ye my face, my heart said unto thee, thy face, Lord, will I seek. Hide not thy face far from me. Put not thy servant away in anger. Thou hast been my help. Leave me not, neither forsake me, O God of my salvation. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. Teach me thy way, O Lord, and lead me in a plain path because of mine enemies. Deliver me not over unto the will of mine enemies, for false witnesses are risen up against me, and such as breathe out cruelty. I had fainted, unless I had believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. May he bless our reading of his word. We read again those first 3 verses, Psalm 27, verses 1 through 3. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. Our text is a very personal confession of faith. Not in the safety and security of a church building, but it's a confession of faith that's made in the face of tremendous difficulty, trials, discouragements, loneliness, loss, hurt. Sometimes it's said loudly, strongly. Sometimes it's whispered. But in every situation, it rings true. Jehovah is my light and my salvation and the strength of my life. In this will I be confident. In what He is, or what He says He is to me. "12 times there are personal pronouns in these first 3 verses. That's why our final point is entitled that, a personal confession. So first we look at the occasion for this confession. Then we look at the source of it. So the occasion for the confession arises out of fearfulness. But the source of fearlessness is in Jehovah and His description of His relationship to us. And then we want to see how that fits each child of God individually. Very personal. My light, my salvation. Shall I fear? The strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Mine enemies, my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, war, a whole army against me by myself, in this will I be confident. The occasion are enemies. Real and perceived, but the perceived are just as real. First, physical enemies that David faced. Real foes. Goliath, a giant. And when he entered into the army of Saul, and he had to gain 100 foreskins to be able to have David's daughter to wife, Michal, they didn't give themselves up. They didn't say, here, take my life. He had to fight, and they were after him. The king of Gath and the residents of Gath, when David was fleeing from Saul, another enemy, knew of the songs of the women of Israel when David would return with his soldiers. Saul has slain his thousands, but David has slain his 10,000s. And that made them all the more want to capture him and to kill him and to take his life. And then there was Absalom and Ahithophel. And there had to be countless others who were real foes, real enemies that were after David's physical life. They were plotting, they were intelligent, they were not mere blind forces. They were instruments of wickedness that sought to attack him. And they did so with great hatred and sometimes beguiling friendliness. Sometimes we have those who are against us. Maybe not against us in a militarily sense, but they can be against us very really. The pain that can be caused by gossip, the hurt that can be ours because we see all of a sudden people stop talking when we come around. And we knew they were talking about us. The rumors that form and develop reputations. Foes that came upon us to kill us. In addition to the physical and the real, there are also foes that we face that are spiritual enemies. Every effort by Goliath, the Philistines, Saul, Absalom, and Ahithophel were mere instruments in the hand of Satan, who knew that it would be David's son that would crush his head. And Satan made every effort to destroy David, thus trying to prevent the coming of David's son. And Satan was a tireless enemy. Satan is a kind of foe who never fights fair. He never gets tired, so when we're tired after battling with him, he backs away and has to rest. Satan is the kind of foe that when we're down, that's when he seems to attack the most strongly. When we're weary, when we're frustrated, that's when he really can come at us. And that's when it seems that he uses our fellow saints. That's the very nature of the devil. He not only can use the ungodly, but he uses our own fellow saints, our family, brothers and sisters. And that's when the hurts are the worst. And the memory we hang on to the longer. There could be personal loss. David knew that. In verse 10, he says, "When my father and mother forsake me." We don't know the exact nature of David's own experience of the loss of his parents. But parents leave us when God takes them from us in death. Parents can leave us when they divorce for personal reasons, and it always seems that the children, no matter how young or old they are, always are hurt the more than the parents are by their own divorce. Sometimes we think our parents are against us. But whether they really are or not, our experience is that which makes us think that father and mother have forsaken us. Sometimes there's parents that abuse their children, physically and sexually. And the pain of that is so great psychologically and emotionally. It would have been better if it had been an enemy. But the worst kind of pain that David experienced and that occasioned his fear was that which, those times in the course of his life that he felt God had forsaken him. Verse 9, "Hide not thy face far from me." The Aaronitic blessing that we'll hear at the end of our service says, cause the light of thy countenance to shine upon us. Give us a smile, as it were. When David says, hide not thy face far from me, it can be because he thought that God was frowning at him, that God was against him, that God was angry with him, or even that maybe he wasn't a child of God. And God's smile never was there and would never come again. Hide not thy face far from me. Put not thy servant away in anger. Thou hast been my help. Leave me not now, neither forsake me. O God of my salvation, leave me not, nor forsake me. Physical, spiritual, family, God. All of them individually, and each one of them individually, and all of them together, results in fear. I'm alone. What's the way out? Tremble. Tremble and trepidation. Fear, anxiousness, just not being able to get a sense of security. We seem to be in a boat that tips one way and then the other way, and we're convinced it's going to tip over either way and we're going to drown under the waves of trouble. Psalm 46 described the waves of an ocean in the midst of a storm that would beat against the shore and destroy the mountains on the shore. A tsunami can come with a wave that just climbs the hills and covers them, and there's no place to be secure, afraid. Now, all of these experiences are part of our normal life. What really is the answer? The struggle is that sometimes the nature of our thoughts is that we take the truths that we're about to open and explain concerning God's relationship to us, and we say that our fear is even greater than them, and we take this knowledge and we say, yes, that's what I'm supposed to hear in church, and that's what the preacher is supposed to say, and yes, that's all nice and true, but what about this reality that I'm faced with? I'm scared, and I can't calm down, and I am anxious to beat the band. What is my help? Is this always the answer? In every situation? And the answer of Psalm 23 is yes. I shall not want. Why not? Because Jehovah is my shepherd. Because Jehovah declares me to be righteous. He will not suffer the righteous to be moved. The mind that's fixed and stayed on Him, He keeps in shalom, shalom. Because that mind that's fixed and stayed on Him hears Him say, I have a purpose, eternal thoughts, and I know the eternal thoughts that I have toward you. Of whom shall I be afraid? Whom shall I fear? Is that expression of fearlessness just some self-confidence? Even if we're really wonder ourselves, nevertheless, we grab our bootstraps and we jerk them up and we say, I got to do it. I wonder, but I got to do it, so I'm going to keep trying. I have to. Is it a vain boast arising out of our ability or our thinking that we have to do it? Is this just a reckless statement? Whom shall I fear? Is this the expression of a young, immature Christian who says it when the boat's calm and things are relatively at peace, and he can look at all of those other people that are struggling and say, they're just weak in faith? Is that what this is? Well, if we read the whole of the psalm, this isn't an immature Christian. This is David. And David wasn't on the mountaintop. David was right in the middle of the battle. David was experiencing the reality of all these trials. He lists them. They're real. And that's when he says, sometimes I shout it, and sometimes I whisper it. Whom shall I fear? Of whom shall I be afraid? In this will I be confident. He is the God of my salvation. That little whisper, that reminder to himself is this. David sees himself. He sees all of those things that are against him on every side. And they're there especially when he lays his head on his pillow at night and it drives sleep away from him because his thoughts are going. Then he says this, I will look up. And now every word is important. And it starts with the name that God would have David use to describe God. The name Jehovah. One more time. I need to hear what it means. Jehovah, the I am. That holy God who is filled with every perfection, who has every ability fully and perfectly, that God who is self-sufficient. And that God who never changes. That's Jehovah. But when Moses trembled at the prospect of having to go to Pharaoh and go to the elders of Israel that he hasn't seen for 40 years, and tell them, and I don't know if he even knew the elders 40 years before because of his insignificant role in the house of Levi and then living in the house of Pharaoh. He's got to go before the leaders of Israel, and he's got to go before the mightiest conqueror of the whole world at the time, and he's got to say, let my people go. Who's telling you to say that? Jehovah. This self-sufficient God who is unchangeable in his purpose, unchangeable in his relationship, unchangeable in his love. This Jehovah who doesn't need anyone, but he is pleased to establish a relationship with a number of those that he has elected and chosen in Jesus Christ. And he has that relationship with them personally. That Jehovah. Listen to the description of that Jehovah as you find it in Isaiah 51. This is verses 12 and 13. Even I am he that comforteth you. Who art thou that thou shouldest be afraid of a man that shall die, and of the Son of Man which shall be made as grass, and forgettest Jehovah thy Maker, that hath stretched forth the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth? He stretched forth these heavens. How magnificent and large and enormous are the heavens. He put them up there. On what does this globe stand? Jehovah made and laid the foundations to make this earth have all the stability that it does. I am Jehovah. Why should you fear a piece of dust that's like the grass that withers and is gone? May look strong one day, but it's gone the next. Jehovah is the object of our knowledge. Yes, don't close your eyes to the enemies. Don't close your eyes to your own inabilities. Keep them open. But don't make them bigger than him and Jehovah small. Make Jehovah who he really is. And then place yourself and the enemies in front of him. Jehovah is my salvation. The God of my salvation, he says of him in verse 9. He's the God who has been able to declare me always guilty, always in the midst of sin, to be delivered from the fear of the punishment that all of my sins and sinfulness earn. He has salvation, saved me. He has delivered me from sin and guilt and misery, from my greatest enemy, the greatest evil. And he's given to me, salvation, the greatest good. He's given to me the ability to know that I'm righteous. He's given me the ability to know. How did we sing it in Psalter number 52? Evermore my home shall be, O Jehovah, in thy holy house with thee. Evermore my home shall be in thy holy house with thee, O thou Jehovah. He's the God of my salvation. He saved me. At what price? At the evidence of what did it cost him? We don't like the loss of a loved one. He gave up his most beloved one to save us. This mighty God is for me. Psalm 56, verse 9, when I cry unto thee, then shall mine enemies turn back. This I know. Here's the simplest and most powerful and beautiful expression. For God is for me. In God will I put my trust. Verse 11. I will not be afraid of what man can do unto me. Jehovah, my salvation, the strength of my life, the ability, when everything seems to be against us, to hang on, the ability to endure, what it really means to wait on Him. He's going to say that at the end of the psalm. Keep serving me. Keep loving me. Just keep hanging on. Wait on Jehovah. Be of good courage. He shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on keep waiting on Him, serving Him, loving Him. That's what wait on Jehovah means. You just keep loving Him. Focus on why He is worthy of your love. Oh yes, there's all kinds of things that are going to make you afraid. But your strength is your ability to realize that I'm going to love Him because He first loved me. Yeah, He gives me all kinds of commandments. He tells me what I have to do. But every time He does that, He shows me why, so that I want to do what He tells me to do. He always wins me. He doesn't want just obedience. He wants my love. The strength of my life means He is the place of our safety. He's our stronghold. He's our refuge. He's our fortress. He defends us. He will uphold you. Even if He takes you from this life and brings you home quickly, He's still upholding you and defending you and keeping you in the face of enemies that are stronger than you. He's just using them. The strength of my life. Now all of that is because Jehovah is my light. That's how the psalm starts. And I ended with that because the ability to see Him as the God of our salvation and the strength of our life and being Jehovah is only because that Jehovah is my light. And when it says my light, it is this: He is the one who gives me the ability to believe. Gives me the ability to see Him. Because in order to see God, Jesus said to Nicodemus, you must be born again. Except a man be born again, he cannot see God. So He gives me the ability to see that Jehovah is. He gives me the ability to see what He is, what His relationship to us is. He gives the gift day after day of cloudiness, and then He brings a day of bitter cold, but He gives us sun. cheering, brightness, hope. A night can be so long, hour after hour of darkness. And then even if it's cloudy, we can see beyond ourselves. Jehovah is my light. Verse 4, that which follows our text, says, the reason why I desire to be in the house of Jehovah all the days of my life is that there I'm going to be able to see, behold, see the beauty of Jehovah. And if you understand the Hebrew word grace, the first and root meaning of the word grace is beauty. God is beautiful. And what does grace do? It makes the objects of grace beautiful. Jehovah is my light. He enables me to see that contrary to everything else in my life, I've got to be good enough. But with regard to Him, I don't have to be. Whom does God justify? He justifies the godly? No. Romans 4, verse 4 and 5, He justifies the ungodly. He justifies those that aren't good enough. Who does He heal? Those who know they're sick and hurting and troubled. Those who go to the physician. That's the one that He is the healer of. Jehovah is my light. The ability to see Him. To see what He's done for us in Jesus Christ. To see that His relationship to us is what gives us the ability to embrace Him, to hang on to Him, to endure. Remember Jacob at the river? God touched his thigh and he found out how weak he was, that he couldn't fight. So all he could do was hang on and say, I won't let go until you bless me. And God said to him, you are blessed. You are. Would you look at what's on your head? It's the helmet of salvation. Would you see what I covered your breast with? It's the righteousness. You are righteous. Now, all of this isn't just theoretical. This isn't just some nice instruction. Thanks, preacher. You said it okay. Faith is personal knowledge of truth concerning God and me. I cannot believe for you. I cannot believe for my children. I cannot believe for my wife. Each one of you, little children, young people, young adults, old people, each one of you must exercise this gift of sight that holds for truth what God has said in His Word. And we don't have to go any further than right here. He says, I am your shepherd. He says, I am your light and your salvation and the strength of your life. He says that. Don't believe it because Reverend Van Overloop says it. Believe it because he says it. Most personal. But the ability to grasp it comes this way. Do you remember in 2 Corinthians 12 when Paul says he was given tremendous glory, and then God, in order to teach him and humble him, puts a thorn in his side, in his flesh. And that thorn that he had in his flesh, he prayed, Lord, please take it away. And God's answer wasn't just, my grace is sufficient for thee, but also this, my strength is going to be completed, perfected. My strength is perfect in your weakness. My strength is going to be completed in you in your weakness. Lord, take this flesh, take this thorn from me. David, is Paul, come on. My grace is sufficient for you. My strength is going to be evidenced and manifested and completed when you admit your weakness. Lord, get 3 times. Take it away. Paul, my grace is sufficient. My grace is enough. Let the fact that I love you, and you don't deserve it, but I still am going to love you, be enough to suffice you, and that you don't need the thorn out. You don't need the troubles away. You don't need to have the burdens taken off. They're there because I have appointed them to be there, because I want to teach you how weak you are. So that when you quit saying, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, and you say, I can't. I'm just a rotten, repeated sinner. That then the wonder of undeserved love, grace, is all that I need. What do I need beside to know? Do I need the thorn out? Do I need the burden gone? No, he says, my undeserved love, that's enough, isn't it? And you want more? You want more than just my... Are you saying my love is just? Faith realizes that the trials that God sends us, the presence of the enemies, is there precisely, one, to teach me my weakness, my ungodliness, my inability. I can't. But the presence of those enemies and those trials are the occasions for me over and over, every second and every minute of every day, 24/7, to exercise my faith in Him and in His relationship to this wretch. Personal, me, my strength, my light, my salvation, my Jehovah. Someone wrote it this way: God brings me into darkness precisely in order to show me that He is my light. I must see my weakness in order to see His strength. He has me experience misery in this present life in order to show me that He is my salvation. Learn about Him. Learn who He is. Learn what He has done for you. Learn what He thinks about you. Learn what He promises to do for you. And when you more and more see that and learn that, and even if all that we can do is whisper it, we're going to whisper, "Whom shall I fear? Of whom shall I be afraid?" Because I look at myself, but then I look away from myself. I don't despair. I would despair of myself, but I don't despair when I see what He says. My arms are underneath you. Maybe you don't feel them, but those footprints in the sand are mine. They're not yours, because I'm carrying you, and I'm embracing you, and I will never let you go. Evermore, my home shall be, O Jehovah, in thy holy house for aye. Do you know how loved you are? Amen. If thou art for us, then what can be against us? So what time we are afraid, we will put our trust in Thee, and we will constantly work so to trust in Thee and not be afraid. Amen.